dating is that we bring past situations into our relationships. Yeah. I didn't get married until I was 31 years old. So I had an entire life before my husband. If you do not take the time to heal from those past soul ties, if you don't take the time to let go of those things, you will bring those spirits into your relationship. And so I think the expectations of performance.
Hello, and welcome to another amazing episode of TMC, where we are here to help you take your relationship
from surviving to thriving. If this is your first time joining us, go ahead and subscribe. Hit that like button, hit the notification bell so you won't miss any amazing episode.
Today on TMC, we have a very special guest, Miss Shani L Farmer, with Dropping Unrealistic Expectations.
Excited to be here today. I am Shani L, your relationship enthusiast. Some basic things about me. I'm a relationship coach. I work for the government full-time as well as in HR. So everything I do has to do with human touch. I love listening to people. I love nurturing people. It's definitely my passion. So I do it in corporate America and I do it in my private life as well. I am married to Benjamin Farmer, my husband. Fun fact about us, we just relocated to the UK for work last year. Wow. So we'll be here for 3 years. So we're really excited about that, to take full advantage of everything UK has. So, you know, traveling to Italy, and we'll be going to Greece and Rome and Paris and all that good stuff. So we love that. We have a fur baby, Joy, but we do and are looking forward in the future to growing our own family. So that's really important and exciting to us, but I'm just happy to be here.
Awesome. So how long have you all been married?
We've been married for 5 years. Our anniversary is actually May 27th.
Wow.
So, awesome. Thank you. We're excited about that in particular because we've decided last minute, we're like, let's renew our vows. So we're going to renew our vows in Florence, just the two of us, redo our vows. Because like, I'm sure you guys know, whatever the first year was, is not what's happening in year 5. So those vows need to adjust, renew. You know, for us, I think it's getting more realistic. That time before marriage, and maybe the first year, it's kind of some fantasies that happen, different levels of expectations, and then you start to settle in, and just more vulnerability and the ability to be a bit more realistic about what love, marriage, and life looks different, at least for us. So we're looking forward to writing something that represents who we are 5 years later.
Wow.
So I'm excited.
I love it. And I want to do this because, man, here it is. You prepare for the wedding and we rarely prepare for the marriage. And so you get married, you have the first 2 years, you're trying to adjust and trying to become, trying to figure things out. So now you're at that 5-year mark. My question is, from 5 years to that first year, what are some things you wish you would have known then that you know now? And how you're making those adjustments?
So a big one for us. So when we first got married, we both had very high expectations of each other. So we did the right thing in the beginning, where we did the counseling, which I think everyone should do. We went through a 10-week program. Then we went through like another 10-week program. It was called So You Think You Want to Get Married, where 2 become 1. Then we did one-on-one counseling. So we were like, we're going to be prepared.
Oh, you guys are for real.
Oh, we were for real. But you know what, Cedric, what I realized, again, it is important, but what we've talked about is that we began in that space to intellectualize the marriage and the relationship, rather continuing to work through the marriage in our heart. We did all the check the box things, which became very intellectual, but we started to miss out, not understanding that we did it because we didn't do it purposely, or nurturing just us. So we nurtured the idea, but we weren't nurturing the reality. And I think that's something that we figured out now, something we've talked about when we look back on our journey from dating and then the first year of marriage. So I'm saying that also to say, I remember right before we got married, I would, my mindset was, oh, I'm going to be an amazing wife. We're going to be having sex 5-6 times a week. I'm going to be wearing lingerie. He's going to have a new cooked meal. All these ideas of what I believed represented a great wife and a great marriage. And not that those things don't, but reality set in very quickly in that first year, because I work full time, he works full time. And a lot of my habits that I didn't work on prior to that, you think is just going to change automatically. And it does not, started to show itself because we didn't live together prior to. So my husband, Ben, he did not communicate his emotions well. So he kept a lot of that stuff in, but those expectations that I had set and he wanted to see follow through didn't happen. So he was disappointed. And then he became resentful at times, but he didn't know how to communicate that with me. So I think that's something that we learned, was learning not to have unrealistic expectations on each other and giving one another grace. And then being able, and I know married couples talk about this all the time, but I don't think it really clicks for people all the time until you're in it, about how important communication is in every style of communication. Because we talk about it very broadly, but it's like, how do we actually break that down? Like, how do you actually communicate with your partner? And everybody's different on how they need to be communicated to.
Yeah, that's good. You mentioned something, and I'm gonna give it to Shan because I can go. But you said something, and you talked about those expectations. So, what do you think these expectations come from?
Hollywood. I think they come from Hollywood. I think that's where it starts. I really do believe that a lot of our relationships, while we're growing up, I'm not going to say everyone because I never speak for the masses, but most of us don't get nurtured in how to be a wife and how to be a husband and how to sustain or go into healthy relationships. So we learn from our friends. We learn from either seeing it in our homes or not seeing it in our homes. And we definitely learn it from TV, from the Love Jones to the Best Man to the whatever it may be, all those rom-coms. And again, we start to have these fantasies about what we think it's supposed to be, instead of people really sitting down having honest conversations with us about what marriage really looks like. So I think that's where some of it can come from. And then sometimes I do believe we believe ourselves, and that's fine. You're excited. It's new. You're in love. When you're in that space, you do have these ideas about what you desire, and nothing is wrong with that. I don't think anyone should skip that season. Like, every part of getting to know someone is a journey, and you shouldn't skip that season. But at the same time, someone or something has to pull you in to help you to balance out some of those realities.
I like that. Shani. You talked about two things already. You talked about expectations and reality. And I think I would definitely agree. A lot of times in dating, and from the dating to the marital process, the engagement and all of that, sometimes those things are completely opposite of each other. What you're expecting or what your expectations of that person in that relationship is versus what the reality is. But you talked about, as you and your husband are preparing to renew and celebrate your 5 years together, that you all want to formulate vows that are around what you all realistically look like and now expect from each other. So with that in mind, let's jump a little backwards for the TMC listeners about the dating process. If we're making some of these, I wouldn't call it a mistake, but it's making some of these mishaps when we're preparing to get married. Like, my expectations are over here, but reality is over here, and we don't really dig into that. What are some of those things that you think could cause some common mistakes in relationships?
I would say one of the first things is listening to everyone else and not yourself. And I know that might sound counterproductive because I'm a relationship enthusiast, I'm a coach, but I think that there's so much noise out there right now. So many people giving their thoughts and advice, so much like relationship goals and what it should look like, that people are subconsciously losing themselves and they're no longer dealing with the core of who they are. So I think that it's important sometimes for us to eat the meat and spit out the bone, to take a step back and be present with yourself and say something like, is this something I actually believe in? And if I do, where did it come from? So for example, one thing I tell my ladies is I want you to take a moment and go listen to a podcast. They'll come listen to you all, listen to one of the podcasts. But as you listen to that podcast, be conscious in what's being said and write down the things that you enjoyed. Like, oh, you know what? I really do like that. I like that approach because it may be something new. And then write down things that wasn't for you and really figure out why it is and why it isn't, whether it came from generational reasons, from your family, whether it came from, oh, because that's how love stories are told on TV or on the internet. I think people, so many other areas of our lives we study, experts in, but we don't become experts in our love life. We don't become experts in ourselves and really take it serious enough to consciously think about why we are making the decisions that we're making. So that's one thing. I think not having established foundations. So this is my personal opinion. I do not believe in, no. Let me take a step back. If you are a man or a woman who are dating with purpose and dating for the intent of marriage, going with the flow just may not work on your behalf. You have to understand what your ending goal is. If you understand what your end goal is, then I believe that you will understand how you need to handle your journey to get there. But I think people don't know who they are. They haven't established values and a vision and mission statements of what they want with their dating and in their marriage. And they haven't set boundaries and they haven't done these things. So they go in just flowing with their heart. And as we all know, because I know I've been there multiple times, you usually get hurt because of that. So that's another thing, that a common mistake that I think people make. Something else, and we kind of talked about it, is skipping the journey. Like, everybody is just so ready to get to the altar. You know, you're ready to be a bride, but are you ready to be a wife? You're ready to be a groom, but are you ready to be a husband? Which is completely different. We prepare for the day, but we don't prepare for the marriage. We rob ourselves of enjoying those seasons. Every season, just like we talk about with kids. We'll be like, no, you trying to grow up too fast. Just be a child, just enjoy. And they like, I'm trying to get to whatever it may be, 21 so I can drink, 18 so I can go to the club. And you're missing out. And I think the same thing happens in the dating space. We get so anxious, we get so eager that we miss out on, you know, enjoying each season, getting to be courted. Then the next stage of possibly, you know, the engagement, and then what comes right after that, and then the marriage.
I don't even think that computes a lot of time, that the expectations just take over. And now the relationship itself and the time that you're spending with each other is not even the forefront of the goal. It's the expectations. Like, we got to have the wedding with this, we got to have the dance, we got to have the dress, we got to have this. That becomes the focus versus the essence of the relationship and what's good for both of you all. Like, is this really what you want? And a lot of times I think that that's what affects some of the mistakes or some of the common mishaps that happen in dating, because the expectations take over. And it's almost like, I think about, you know, they have this thing called the lazy river where you just kind of floating along. And I think a lot of times that's where we get, because we're floating along, but the ultimate thing that we're floating to is what everybody else is doing or what we believe we're supposed to do at that point, instead of what's really good for the both of us. And I've heard you say that multiple times, checking in with your partner, checking in with your significant other, and what's good for the two of you. You know, there's plenty of people that they have the wedding, they have the awesome day, and that works great for them. And then for Cedric and I, it was completely different. And so whatever works for you as an individual couple, as a unit, then you want to look at that and, you know, curve your life around that.
And I remember growing up, Shani, because you said, you know, Hollywood, but I remember when we got married, my example of marriage was the Cosby Show. I mean, now you have the generations. Now they have a totally different expectation. I mean, you have reality TV. There's things that have been broadcasting on TV. That's, I mean, with, you know, the baby showers and the pre-baby showers and the gender reveals and the reveal behind the reveal and all these different things. That's things that we're trying to follow suit, keeping up with these trends. And I think this is creating an unrealistic expectation for the marriage. So I want to dig into, I really want to dig into this. You guys coming up on 5 years. in the beginning, that was unrealistic expectations. Now this is becoming realistic. But I just wanted you to talk about some things as far as the realistic expectations that you have encountered over the last 5 years.
So a major one, oh gosh, it's a couple of them. So one major one for us, we just jump into it, is the sex expectations and what that is supposed to look like or what it should be. And so we've dealt with that from the beginning because my husband and I both have just had different levels of our sex drive. And so meeting each other's expectations there has been very frustrating at times. And so that's been a big one that we, again, are learning to have grace over and learning to get help. I think the old school generation, and it still carries till now, is that you keep what you happen at home. You don't tell nobody your business and what y'all got going on. Y'all keep that between y'all, but sometimes you don't know how to figure it out. And it's okay if you don't know how to figure it out. Sometimes let's have a real conversation. And I was going to bring this up with some of the stuff about dating, is that we bring past situations into our relationships. I didn't get married until I was 31 years old. So I had an entire life before my husband. If you do not take the time to heal from those past soul ties, if you don't take the time to let go of those things, you will bring those spirits into your relationship. And so I think the expectations of performance in the relationship was a big one as well, that we had to kill in certain ways because of past relationships. For us, another one where we deal with is gender roles, who's supposed to do what. And with both of us working full-time and having full-time jobs, I cannot be I'm gonna speak from a woman's point of view. I cannot be expected to work 8 or 9 hours a day, cook, clean, sex, everything that a woman is supposed to do. And I think we've also learned that we're a partner. This isn't about gender roles. This is about partnership. And we're living in a space of partnership. My husband is the one who washes the clothes. He washes and folds the clothes. Now he will tell you he don't always like it, but that's something that he's just been stronger in that area. I love to cook, so I'll still be the one to cook, but we both clean. Or if I'm tired one day, we'll pick up after each other. And I know we've heard this too, and it's so true. There's no such thing as 50-50. It's just not. Sometimes it's 75 and the other person can only give 20. Sometimes it's, we're both giving 100% of ourselves. It's a roller coaster. It's up and down, and that's okay. And it's okay. And something else I would mention that's happening in our marriage right now, and why we decided to even do our vows the way that we're doing them, is literally, and this is me more teaching my husband this because he's more analytical. He's an engineer. So everything is up here. Everything is head. I'm heart all day. So he is allowing me, and he has allowed himself to finally get to a space to open up and truly figure out how to connect his head and his heart together. So the first thing we're doing in this space right now is learning to be just present. Like,
that's awesome.
Just look at each other. Just be here. Like, let go of the to-do list. Let go of what's supposed to happen later or tomorrow. Let go of the business conversations, and let's just be with one another. The example I gave him, and he used it today when we were on our walk, was, I just want you to continue to love me for me, not for what I can do, not for what I bring to the table. But if we literally were sitting in the middle of a field and it was just us on a couch, naked, just us, I need you to love that woman, her.
Yes.
Nothing attached to me, nothing, and vice versa. And I think that right now is where our new connection and reconnection is coming from. So that's why this morning we took a walk in nature purposely to ground ourselves and let it just be us, and let us find new ways to connect with one another. So it's the deeper stuff. It's not the resume. Like, I think that's the big thing for year 5 for us. Like, we let go of the resume.
I like that. I like that. Because that's what it's all about. You are absolutely correct. Just the two of you. Nothing else attached to it, just the two of you. I love that.
Also, why we're doing our vows the way we are, and it makes me feel amazing, where it's just us. Like we're not asking friends and family to come in. No one's going to be standing. No, it's us, because we're the only ones in this. Like we were the only ones going through from day one. We're the only ones here now. You know, we're making it fun and beautiful by doing it in Italy. We're going to find us a little chapel, a little church home, rewrite these vows, and literally just be us.
Exactly. Nothing else matter, right? Nothing else matters.
And one more thing, I'm sorry, that's understanding each other's strengths, connecting with those strengths. And sometimes we resent our own strengths. Yeah. Like my husband is really good financially. He is a finance guy. And so I've completely taken my hands off of it. Not a good idea. I'm not saying that's what I should have done. So I'm starting to shift, one, because my husband opened up to me. This goes back to that, him being in touch with his heart. Shani, this is too heavy for me. This is burdensome for me to just take care of this on my own. It's too much. And it's me taking a deep breath and receiving what he's saying to me, because a lot of times we can get defensive for whatever reason. I keep going back to this, guys, to this whole being present and conscious. Like this new thing that I'm also doing is in the moment, taking a deep breath, like 3 good breaths before I respond. Because am I responding out of fear? Am I responding out of anger? Am I responding out of past traumas? How am I responding to this situation with him? And I think he's starting to pick that up, you know, because I'm doing it. So now it's starting to reverse and he's doing it. So when he made that statement, I usually would be like, well, you don't want to like finances. I didn't ask it. You want to manage everything. I would get defensive and that mouth would get the going. And now I find myself literally trying to just be present with my body. Like, why is my stomach tightening up when we're having this conversation? Like, what's happening for me to get tight? And I try to really like engage myself. And then I tell him that, like, I'm feeling anxious with this conversation. I'm feeling anxious. And he's like, okay. You know, we're processing it instead of assuming, instead of just throwing things out there because we're emotionally riled up, we're processing situations. So even in that moment, I was able to process it and said, okay, I want to be able to lend a hand to you. What does this look like? What does this look like for us? It's not my strength, but what areas can I take off of you in order for it not to be burdensome to you? And for him, it was the more emotional context with me. Like, I want to hear your heart. I want you to talk to me from the space of your heart more than you do your head. And so it's something for a long time he used to get defensive about. Oh, this was it. This is what happened, guys. Okay, this is what happened. My husband, he's a server. So his love language is servitude. So, you know, he brings me flowers, he washes the dishes, he does this, he's doing, do. And so when I would say things like, we're not connecting intimately, we're not connecting emotionally, he would get defensive because he did not understand what I meant. He's like, what do you mean? Yeah. What else do you need me to do? I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And we got to a point, we had a conversation not too long ago, and I'm like, but that's the point I mean. You're doing and not being. I just want you to be. Yeah. I just want you to be close. I just want you to be. It was, and something in there clicked for him. And he was like, I get it. I finally get it, because he was just connecting his love language and how he loved me with doing and servitude. And I'm like, I just want you to love me in a being moment, just right here with us. So the expectations have changed through our level of communication. And it goes back to what we said in the beginning, how communication can just look different. So my communication is changing because I'm becoming in tune with my body first and trying to process and understand, why do I want to respond the way that I do? Where is this coming from? You know, is it fear? Is it fiction? Is this real of how I want to respond? And if it's not, how do I really need to respond to my husband right now? Right. And him giving me the space and grace to do so.
Yeah, I'm going to give it to Shane, but I don't want to miss this right here, because you talked about communication between the spouse, but you did something. You actually went pretty deep right here, and I don't want this deepness to get skipped over, because it's one thing for you and your husband to communicate with each other, but now you're communicating with yourself.
So,
What am I feeling? So that's a whole different level of communication. And oftentimes we want to communicate. I want to communicate with Sean, but I want to communicate with her based on what I feel. And I get caught up in my emotions. She gets caught up in her emotions, and we don't get anywhere. But going deep and communicating with yourself. You said something, and it's this key. I don't miss this, TMC. She said before she responds, she take a deep breath. Like, what am I feeling? Before I respond, what am I feeling? Where is this coming from? So you're communicating with yourself. You're communicating with self before you communicate with him. Because if you don't communicate with self first, the communication between you and him really doesn't matter, and there may be conflict.
And I may be communicating from a place of hurt. From a place of trauma, from a place of trigger, right? Being triggered by something. It may not even be him. It could be something from the past that has happened, or an insecurity of mine, and I haven't dealt with that insecurity, and now I'm projecting onto my husband, and vice versa. We both have experienced that.
We all do it.
Yeah. So the deeper place is important.
And this is a reminder for all of us, for you all, for Shani and I, and also for the TMC family. Everyone that's listening, this can happen. It doesn't matter how intelligent you are. It doesn't matter how successful you are in your career. It does not matter how great of a leader you are. It doesn't matter how spiritual or holy you are. It doesn't matter how much anointing you have. This can happen to anyone. So just keep that in mind.
Absolutely. So, Shani, I want to ask you this. What are some practical things or some things that you think that we could start to do to combat unrealistic expectations?
So two things that came up when you were discussing that is two types of studying. I think one, studying your partner. Here we go again about being conscious and aware. And not just listening to what they say, but how they're behaving, how they act, taking the time to really study your partner, recognizing this goes back to the body, what's making them anxious, what's making them uncomfortable when they sigh, when you be like, or they be like, and you're like, well, what's the deep breath for? You really want to understand that. So it's studying your spouse in action. Oh no, I saw somebody put it up on Instagram. This lady put up, ladies, stop giving your to-do list to your husband on his day off.
Yes.
Did you see that from Laura? Laura, I want to give her props. Yes. I saw that. So that's a practical example of you studying your spouse. Be aware of the environment. If it's a day off, no one wants to take on additional to-do lists. That's just an unexpected expectation we're putting on them. And then another one I would say is, I'm gonna give a real example when I say this, is going back to unlearning and relearning the things you need to learn for each other. Oh, y'all talked about this. Y'all must have been talked about this.
Go.
Okay. And a practical example that I'll give about my husband and I is we were talking about tithing. We both grew up differently in the church, different types of backgrounds from growing up. And so he believed one way about tithing, and I had a different expectation of tithing. And two things came out of this. We were in the kitchen, and I said to him, hey, I want to be able to take some of our tithing money and give it to XYZ because they're in need. Because my thoughts and perception of tithing is different from his. He paused and kind of took a deep breath. So that goes back to studying your partner. I stopped it right there. I said, hey, let's stop it right there. We still need to dig deeper into us understanding and coming together about what tithing is. Because what I don't want to happen is every time we bring this conversation up, there's a strain. There's something uneasy, because I felt he's like, no, what you mean? He didn't want to acknowledge it at first. I'm like, no, I saw it. There was a strain. So what can we do where we can get on the same page and this can be easier for us? And so I suggested that we just start having conversation with family and friends about their thoughts about tithing and how they may do it in their household. Studying some YouTube material, if we want, of course, taking it back to the Bible, but also studying some YouTube information. And so we decided to pick a series, and we picked a series with Mike Todd. He did something on, it wasn't directly on tithing, but it was close enough. And we haven't done this yet, but our goal is to come back together to talk about what we learned, what changed from what our philosophy was before and where we want it to be, and how we as a team want to do this because we get so much from our family. So much comes from how we were raised, and we unconsciously just put it in like, well, this is how I always did it, and this is how my parents did it, and this is how we did it in the house. But do we want to do it that way?
Yes,
and how do we figure out how to unlearn that? Yeah. So I think, does that answer the question about the expectations?
Oh yes, absolutely, absolutely. There is definitely, and we're going to shift a little bit because there's definitely one thing that you say that I want to talk to you about.
Okay.
The power of your P. Now, when I first saw this, I was like, oh my God, because back in the day, people said that for a whole different reason.
Oh yeah.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah. So I did do that. I did say the power of the P for that reason.
I know.
And I always tell women that is powerful, but we're not going to talk about that power right now. We're going to talk about a different power, right? So my mission statement is I help women to be healed, healthy, and whole in each season of their relationship. And we do it through the power of their P. And that is nurturing the perception of self. I'm looking over here because I kind of changed it around a little bit. Valuing the power of prayer, understanding your ordained purpose, and embracing your divine right to be pursued. So it's perception, prayer, purpose, and pursuit are the 4 Ps. And to me, whether you are dating, you're single, or you're married, all of those will always be important. It's a circle that never ends. Perception is the mindset. Understanding who you are, like we talked about me taking those deep breaths and learning how to communicate. That's me working on my mindset. That's me working on myself. So that's always going to be important in every season of a relationship, is understanding how your mindset is shifting, how it's working, all of that, how you perceive you. Do you love you? Are you nurturing you? Do you speak words against your, all the new stuff that we talk about with self-love, like stop saying words that are hateful towards you, or, if women are, and it just doesn't have to be dating, but I deal with single women, I'll never get a husband. I ain't gonna never find a man. Ain't no good man. Well, if you continue to speak that way, you will not receive that. Energy matches energy. If you speak that, it's not going to happen, or you won't be able to set yourself up that way. You have to begin to adjust your mindset. So that's the perception. Power of prayer is what it is. It's making sure that you're always leaning in. And for me, because I'm a Christian, it's always leaning into God, like always, like in the decisions that you're making. We don't always lean in, but doing your best to lean into your prayer life and asking God to intercede on every level that he possibly can.
Yes.
Because when you start to include him in your decisions, your directions change. And it's pretty simple ones. And you feel it. You like, ooh, I shouldn't have did that. Or, ooh, I don't need to be doing that.
Absolutely.
Our flesh always wants to do one thing, but the spirit always asks us to do something different. Yeah. So I think, that he needs to be included in your space, your ordained purpose. And this goes with every season too, but it starts with dating. I think people lose themselves in other people. I absolutely have. When you don't know yourself, you allow somebody else to identify you and identify who you are. And I also think if you're walking in purpose, it helps you to find your purpose partner. Because if you're doing the things that you're purposed to do and you're actively in it, then it gives an opportunity for you to meet more people that are in your purpose space, So practical things for men and women is, if you want to date and get to know people, what's your purpose? I don't know. I like working with children. Well, maybe this is the time that you need to start getting into the children's ministry, or if it's not church, going out, whatever it may be, but setting yourself up like that, because you may meet somebody, you have things in common, and then your purpose can begin to grow together. You know what I mean? So, and that carries into marriage, as we know that our purposes change, or how we go about our purposes may change. And so I think that it's necessary, because I think it's the foundation of who you are. Be pursued is about not just being pursued by the opposite sex, but pursuing yourself. I don't think people pursue themselves enough. They don't date themselves. They don't love on themselves. They don't learn who they are, what they like, whether it's you traveling, are you a food connoisseur? Do you like whatever it may be, do you want to learn how to play a new instrument? Pursue you. And when I talk to the ladies from the dating space, it's just really understanding how you want to be pursued by the opposite sex, or setting yourself up to do that. That one has a few layers to it. It has like a few strings to it when it comes to pursuit. But those are the 4 Ps.
Wow.
Awesome. If someone wanted to connect with you and what you're doing, where should they go?
They can go to Shani L Relationship Enthusiast. I know that's long, guys. It's long. That's on Instagram, or you can shoot me an email at info@ShaniLfarmer.com. That's it. info@ShaniLfarmer.com. I am in a space of rebranding, but we will be releasing a new workbook soon for our ladies, and I will be putting out a new coaching opportunity as well for my ladies or gents, but I usually work with ladies who are ready to coach, who are ready to be coached when it comes to dating. So
awesome. On behalf of the TMC family, we want to thank you so very much for taking time out of your busy schedule and adding value to us all.
This is great, guys.
So we hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you did, go ahead and subscribe. Click the like button and turn on your notifications so you'll be notified each time we upload a video. And if you're listening on iTunes, rate the podcast and leave a review. And we want to invite you to head on over to our leadership podcast, Lead to Greatness, where my husband is interviewing entrepreneurs and great leaders from all around the world every week.
So we want to thank you for joining us today on TMC. Looking forward to hanging out with you again on next week as we continue to help you take your relationship from surviving to thriving. Bye. See you next week.